then Harrison would have to prove to the police. Why is he still being held right now? He has to prove to the police of how he was able to get 5.4 million of fake money to mix with real money. I want to first start by saying that the reason Very Dark Black Man is mentioned in this conversation is only for one reason, because he said he was the one that initiated the arrest of Harrison Gwamnishu. If not, I don't think this conversation would have to do with him. But just to give you some clarity on that, if you're meeting me for the first time, my name is George. Here is Facts Over Sentiment, and we face that to the core. That's what we are loyal to. C'est clair? Oui. How are you doing? Hope you're doing fantastic. Before we get on to this case, you've seen what is happening in Benin Republic. And Nigeria sent fighter jets to go and help the government of Benin Republic. Is it to go and fight the soldiers that are planning a coup or what? But what really baffles me is that even with what Nigeria is dealing with today, insecurity, insurgency, kidnappings, as we are going to be discussing about in this video, Nigeria could really send out fighter jets to go to another country nearby Benin Republic. When I used to school in Ghana, we used to pass Benin Republic, Aflao, all the way. Now I went by road then. I'm like, it's as if Nigerians, we just like to show off when we have our own internal issues. And those same fighter jets cannot exterminate and deal with Boko Haram and insurgency we are having right now. That should tell you a lot, that indeed, if the government are novel to those who are causing the insecurity in Nigeria, then that would be a lie. Anyway, let's talk about today's case. Now, for the sake of those who are new to this particular conversation and you're watching from anywhere around the world, this is for you. For those who know already too much, you can skip the video to the point you have interest in. Thank you very much. Who is Harrison Gwamnishu? He is a Nigerian activist focused on security mediation and community protection initiatives. There's a reason why I'm defining him this way, because in as much as Very Dark Man has been mentioned in this conversation, or would I say as he mentioned himself, we have to understand that Very Dark Man has said it countless times. For those of you who still will not listen, if you go on his profile on Instagram, it's written there, he is not an activist. So I don't even think both of them should be compared on any level. He is a social media quote and unquote police that comes on social media and speaks out for people and speaks out for Nigerians and, you know, call out those that needs to be called out. Does that make sense? Thank you very much. But this person here sees himself to be an activist, is recognized to be so, and he has never come out to say that he's not an activist like Very Dark Man has said. So even as we get to talk about them, I'll be making these distinctions because I'm not trying to put them on the same level pegging, not at all. Do you understand that? Good. Now, him being in security mediation and community protection services is more of like a current definition of his person compared to like the past and the things he has done. Just to be clear on that. And this story as well would help you also understand probably why he got into what he's doing. Around April this year, 2025, he resigned from his position working with the government of Delta State because of the insecurity issues that are happening in the state. Because as complaints are coming to him, being a special assistant, of course, to the government, he couldn't just stand that and then wants to be someone active as to what is really happening in the state of Delta. So yes, this whole conversation we are having now is something that happened outside his state, just for us to have context here. So as you write your comments, please make sure you are following chronology of events so that we get to really have a better understanding. No matter whose side you are on, here we look at the issues head on. Timeline of events is quite important because it will help us understand the context of this particular story. On September 5th, 2025, he registered his security initiative called the Safe City Volunteer Foundation. Safe City Volunteer Foundation. So it will help you understand that what he does up until now that he's trending for what we are going to be discussing about is a volunteering service. Now there's a conflicting story as we get to go on, which we are going to be looking at as to did he invite himself into this particular case or was he the one that was called upon to be involved in this case? We are going to look at that. So this is a lengthy conversation. If you have time, please listen. Says first, of course, on the timeline, next on the timeline is the first rescue operation. Okay. Now he had done, even though I mentioned here first rescue operation here, it doesn't mean that this is his first attempt to rescue people. He has been involved in things like this in the past, and this just happens to be the one that happened in where? Edo State. And he actually has tech abilities where he uses this. And from watching his Instagram handle, he works with drones, works with a computer, I think that is it basically. Now, as to how he does this, not as if he works on his own. He also works with the government established security operatives in solving the problems he solves. Note, this particular outfit that he has is said to be non-profit, so he doesn't get to charge to actually deliver his service, or would I say render help as to what is happening in the society. So he receives, or would I say he lives on, but the system itself is sustained on donations, which he publicly posts about, but not as if there is this whole, pay for service kind of thing. Okay, understood? Now, of course, the community support aspect is with respect to the person that was kidnapped. So let's talk about that as well here. How he gets to work as well involves the cooperation of even locals in the area, especially when it comes to Delta State. When I see his works in the past, I follow him on Instagram. Indeed, at least from what he posts, everyone, when someone posts something, if you ask yourself a question, when you post things on social media yourself, would you post things that are demeaning to your person? Not at all. Things that would make you look good. Of course, if you take 100 pictures in a day, you select the ones that makes you look fine before you share on Instagram or anywhere. So from the things he has posted, of course, over time on his platform, I've seen that he has done a lot of work in the past, especially in Delta State, and working with the communities as well in making sure that people are being caught and apprehended in the past. I think is something that is quite commendable of his person, at least from his own side of the story. Note that. Let's go on. The kidnapping incident that happened. The Aviele kidnapping. On November 22nd, 2025, a couple was abducted in the Aviele community, escalating tensions in Edo State. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing the location very well. It's just not my location, so forgive me for that. Moving on as well here, Harrison Gwamnishu's role in that, the ransom delivery process. This is where the crux of the conversation becomes quite tense. So please, I think this is where you are interested in. The initial demand. The family received an initial ransom demand of 50 million naira. That was what the family themselves received. They have to pay for the couple that were held by the kidnappers. The fundraising effort. The family gathered about 20 million through crowdfunding in 10 days. They couldn't have the money themselves, but as a community as well, crowdfunding came together, and within 10 days, they were able to get 20 million naira. Was 20 point something from other news sources. Then the ransom handover. This money was supposed to just be handed to the kidnappers and then get the people themselves released. Now, I speak of these things the way I speak of it because, so for those who have been here longer, not those who just met me recently, you're welcome. My own biological mother was kidnapped before, my own biological mother has been kidnapped before. Yes, we paid ransom and she was released. So I am speaking as someone that Nigeria has happened to before, not like you hear kidnapping, it's like, okay, catch somebody, police and thief. No, this is a real thing. If someone that you love has not been kidnapped before and you understand the feeling of having that sense that this person may be no more, you cannot really understand the magnitude of these things. That's why sometimes when I speak and I'm angry about things happening in Nigeria, it comes from a place, not because I'm just here to create content. You watch me because you're interested in the conversation, not because you like me or you love me that much. For most of you, I have to be very sincere. But let's go on. Negotiation led to the ransom and then handover to kidnappers. Now, when you look at the handover aspect, I'll make a comment on that as we get to go on. Partial release here is now where it became quite interesting in the conversation as I was looking at it. You see, the pregnant wife was released. Yes, of course, the husband remained captive without resolution. And this way it becomes interesting. VDM in his post got to make some assertions after he came out and said that he was the one that initiated the arrest or made the call that led to his arrest. Now, we have seen other people, of course, on social media who are also influential, like Mama Pat and some other people in Edo State from where he's from, saying that Harrison was the one that submitted himself to be investigated. In fact, Harrison had made a post himself and tagged the DSS and the police that he's open to be investigated. So the whole notion of I am the one that called, that is not something you should be arguing right now in the comment, because some of you will start ranting that I hate VDM. For me, I don't hate or like anybody. We look at facts and that's what matters. So in that particular context, if you want to make yourself the center of the conversation, so be it. But there are many factors as well that could lead to that particular incident of him being with the police. Note, in the conversation as well, he was already with the police or working with them in a way up to the point for which the money was being delivered. until an alarm was raised by one of the family members, calling him out that he was now telling the DPO, based on the stories you have seen, at least from his own part, that yes, that happened. And the DPO was like, how come I didn't know about this? And then he was like, you're not supposed to know because of some tech things that were going on behind the scenes, of which the information shouldn't have been of a public conversation because of what he was doing, not privy to the security operatives themselves, or would I say to even the family themselves, that okay, this is what was happening. Even though Harrison claimed that he told the DPO that some work would be done on the money, but the DPO didn't know that the work he was saying that was to be done on the money was that part of the money would be taken and replaced. Now hold that particular thought, because that conversation about the 5.4 million becomes very interesting as to how Harrison's analogy, or his lawyer's analogy, can hold water compared to what other people are saying, and probably what you think already before coming on this video. You aren't watching this video, most of you, because it's actually a new conversation. You have seen things already flying around, you have an idea, and you want to see what George has to say. Are we clear on that? Thank you very much. But moving on as well here, the accusations against Gwamnishu is what I'm now going to be looking at as well here head on, before I go on to other things that are more important. Public accusations against him. One, the allegations against Gwamnishu includes, of course, claims of ransom diversion, prompting an active police investigation into his actions. And this was the one that came directly from, first, of course, the family person who came out and said and called him a thief on Twitter, and saying that he stole from the ransom money that was meant for the release of the victims. Now, I understand where he comes from, that place. Trust me, my dear friends. If your own biological mother or your father has... how it happened... the day it happened in our very before. I could see her being kidnapped right in front of us. The guns are blazing. When Trump said gun are blazing, I saw it right with my own eyes. Oh yes. This was some years ago before I left Nigeria. I think if you think I'm streaming from Nigeria at this point, not at all. Okay, so I understand what it will feel from that angle where it's coming from, that you have negotiated with the kidnappers and they have told you that okay, right now you can bring 20 million to get 2 of them, only for you to release the money for it to be given to the person. And now the kidnappers are the ones saying that the money, they suspect the money itself is not complete, but you know what, we are going to give you the woman and not the man until we verify that the money is complete. Now note as well, for that conversation to even be happening, I'm now speaking based on the stories that I've heard. Some of you have heard the stories yourself. VDM said in his video, I would have played his video here, but with his modus operandi of blocking channels that play his video, I wouldn't want to do that. We'll just have to look at the facts of what he said and what they also narrated. Harrison was not there at the exchange, even though Harrison was there before the exchange. For the exchange, note you were not there, I wasn't there, and VDM getting the reportage and speaking as well would be from those he's talking to that are directly involved in this particular case. So Harrison saw the money before it was to be delivered, but it was delivered by Harrison's lawyer and then someone of the family that went together to make the drop-off. Now, in the story that VDM tells with respect to the fact that VDM tells a story that the people, when they went to deliver the money, that the kidnappers themselves could observe from their own intuition that the money was not up to 20 million, giving a reference of the fact that from their experience, being experienced with over 15 years of kidnapping, that's a lot of experience, I would say, that sometimes monies are being taken away from the money they are supposed to receive in this kind of situation. It's okay, you can watch me in full view. So because of that exchange was the reason why the man was not released together with them. But note here, for them to even suspect that the money itself was not complete became the intuitive factor for them to now go back and then ask Harrison. In as much as they argued because they knew that what they came with was complete, in as much as they argued that with the kidnappers and still gave the kidnappers the money and took the lady, they had to go back and ask Harrison, brother, what happened? The money wasn't the way we saw it to be before it was released onto you, but how come that we releasing the money back right now to the kidnappers is a different thing entirely? Probably if Harrison was there at the exchange, probably they could have gunned him down, because Harrison have gotten popularity already before then that he has been getting kidnappers. So I don't think logically he would be there at the exchange or the drop-off point, but he had to do some work on the money. It just happens to be that the work on the money he said he was going to do was him removing part of the money. Now, the story that comes from Harrison's own side, from the person that spoke more like speaking from his lawyer's side, said that Harrison did what he did in the presence of a family member who was there. But if Harrison was supposed to be secretive about what he was doing as to his modus operandi, even that family member is not supposed to know. Listen, even that family member is not supposed to know that that Harrison took out the money or Harrison did something mischievous. Because if the family member knew and was there, the same family member would not be the one to go, if he was part of those that went to do the drop-off, to argue with the kidnappers that, wait, the money is complete. Nothing is missing here. Does that make sense? So Harrison's story becomes a bit shaky, in as much as what he did was in the presence of that particular family member. That means that whether Harrison picked the money or stole the money, it was done in such a way that even the people that were there are not supposed to understand what he was doing. It now brings me to question his modus operandi before now and how he has been able to successfully catch kidnappers. What has been happening then? Now, no complaint has come before now about there being missing money and all of that up until now. Has he successfully done this before, of taking money, a chunk of it, and with his own story of replacing it with a different kind of currency as a tracking tool? Or is it just that he takes the money and still is able to plant his chip in the real money and then give it to the kidnappers and still gets the kidnappers? Because if that happens, if it's happened this way before, if I'm thinking of him as a thief, playing the devil's advocate right now, then no one will even get to know, if the kidnappers are being caught, that the money that they even received was not even enough to start with. No one would know, because the kidnappers have been caught. They will not come and say the money no plenty, you know enough, we know rich. Why? Because the kidnappers have been caught. You're already caught as a crime. Probably, in fact, you being caught and then finished as well would be the best thing to happen, because you can't even talk and say the money was not up to what it was supposed to be. Because the goal, whether the money is removed or not removed, is that his goal is to get the kidnappers. The goal of the family is to get their loved ones out. Because had it been the money was given completely to the kidnappers, had it been the kidnappers accepted the money and then released both of them together, no one could have known if tomorrow they still got the kidnappers or not. No one could have known how much the kidnappers got except for Harrison. So the story about the fake money printed, or however the fake money was put, 5.4 million put into the bag of money itself, that story becomes a bit sketchy, because few amounts of money could be used for that. Let's be honest here. Few amounts of money could be used for that, for really a good disguise. Or even if you have to spread the money so that you mix it everywhere with the currency itself, it should be that even if they shared the money, you can track them wherever they are. Let me give you a scenario as to what happened with us, even though we still could not really get them. What we did with us was that before we gave the money, we sat down at home and wrote serial numbers of all the money that was to be sent. I was part of that particular work, writing the numbers on the money before we paid the ransom. Okay, so that if they are going to any bank as well to make deposit, there could be an alert that this money is being deposited here, and from there we can know who deposited the money on WhatsApp. But come on, if the kidnappers themselves are smart, this was years ago, they could take it to maybe another state or something, and it's not as if we are that like that VIP people that maybe that could have been, possible. But just for us to, but we shall still pay the money and we got my mother out. The point I'm trying to say right here is that operating in secrecy like that is good to protect his information on how he works. Amazing. But you see it right here, 5.4 million of fake money being added into real money becomes a bit suspicious. How can you do something like that with fake money, that it will be very obvious with the real money? If you mix it together with real money, it will be very obvious, because the money does not even look like, no matter how you put it, if you have a bunch of real money and you have a bunch of fake money as well together. And when I was looking at the money itself, the money was not mint. When they showed a clip of when they got the money from him, or when he returned the money to the police. I don't know if you guys saw those videos. So I was wondering to myself, something is fishy here in this particular scenario. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Now some of you will say, oh George, I'm calling out Harrison, I'm doing this, or I've seen the stories. But in this case here, I have to lean to the side of logic here, because operating in secrecy like that, which is okay for him to do, and he has had success in the past, only means that he controls and knows what exactly goes on. But if the kidnappers could see visibly that this money doesn't look complete from their experience, then clearly how the money was supposed to look before being delivered to them was looking incomplete. And even if from the narration of his own lawyer, that the money that is for Nigerian money itself is weaker that the money itself is lighter than the fake money, of which factually as well, fake money is always heavier than real money. But even at that as well, at least the money itself should look complete visibly in the eye of the kidnappers who have experience, for them to know that, do you understand, this money looks complete, let's not even be a bit shady. On the other side again, please listen, my dear friend. If there's an allegation, there's an innuendo coming from this, there's an innuendo coming from the side of Harrison's legal representative, or those who are speaking on his side, that the brother, the person that is crying on social media and speaking, let me read that particular part here. Forgive me, because I have to look at this as well very holistically. His own part of the story as well here, this is what they say, because it becomes a bit very quite concerning in that particular aspect. Okay, the Osei Ovei success, he said when they entered the bush at midnight to deliver the ransom, the bandits were all wearing masks despite the fact that everywhere was very dark. They were pointing guns and torchlight at him and other victims, another victim's family, who also entered the bush with him to pay ransom for the release of their loved ones. There are other kidnapped victims who are in the custody of the bandits. The question is, did Harrison follow them to the den? When I saw this particular idea, I was like, it becomes a bit confusing, because VDM says that it was the driver that went, and here they say that Harrison himself, because if the kidnappers themselves know who Harrison is and they could see him there, they could even gun him down knowing that he's involved in this particular case. After he gave the ransom, this is a point here, after he gave them the ransom, only the pregnant woman was released to him, and the man was begging for forgiveness from his young brother. According to him, he was saying that his brother should forgive him. Remember, this couple were kidnapped from their home. Could this be an insider job? It was this same brother that first raised the alarm that the money was not complete. 1 + 1 = what? Clown. This person writing now as well here. Note, he said, I just got off the phone from Harrison. No, this person is saying Harrison's own confession. So was Harrison there at the point of exchange? What Ovie's success is saying. And this is from Harrison himself. My work is to follow up with the money so that we can get real-time location and get the military to the exact location, as we have done in the past with evidence to back it up. Clarifying on why the wife was released without the husband, the activist said it was because the kidnappers made an allegation that the ransom of 20 million that the family pleaded was incomplete. They took, this is according to Harrison right now, they took the money to the kidnappers, and they released only the woman and didn't release the man. The people who went, Harrison doesn't talk as if he was there. The people who went said the kidnappers did not count the money to determine whether it was below 20 million or above. They said the kidnappers only told them the money wasn't complete and they should go. They returned and started a blame game, and right in DPO Awuchi's office, I explained to them the strategies and plans we use. They said, why didn't I tell them? I said I did, because I remember telling them we would work on the money, but how it's going to happen is not supposed to be reviewed by anyone. So that's why I was saying that the point of reviewing, there's no way even the person that was there with him, he claimed was there, was even supposed to know that the money itself was shorting, even though Harrison claimed that someone was there. If it's not supposed to be reviewed by anyone, no one is supposed to know that the money was, that he removed some money or did something that he now claimed that he has done now. Factually as well here, the story now coming from him in his absentia now, that with the way he narrated the story, that the husband was begging for forgiveness from the brother and all that, he didn't state that here in his own narration about the case. This was before he was even arrested. This is what he himself, Harrison, said. So what he's saying in custody and what he's saying now, at least from the lawyer, is very, very different. You get where it becomes quite fishy as I look at this. But let's get back to the studio. Doesn't show that Harrison was there at the exchange of the money, but we are going to discuss that further. Harrison, when confronted about the money, hesitated to tell them about his modus operandi, but when the family started threatening him, he told them and the police how he operates, and he was asked to bring the money. He went to his hotel room, took the money he kept aside and handed it over to the police in Auchi, Edo State, that same day before leaving the town. Even when Ovia Success himself wrote this, I was wondering to myself, at what point would now lead them to start confronting about the money when you don't talk about any missing money from this particular point here? Even though he says in the third stanza that he did this in the presence of the family member who was in the room with him. Now the family member was called to answer, and he claimed that Harrison was backing him, and so he didn't see what he was doing. Of course, Harrison wouldn't want him to know what he was doing if what he was doing was supposed to be a secret. Okay, but at what point as well here did money being missing become an issue? Because I don't see that, of course, in the standards he write here. He just went on as well and said after the operation they went to the police station of Auchi to give reports. Harrison, when confronted about the money, what led to Harrison being confronted about the money? There must have been an altercation about the missing money for Harrison to be confronted about the money. But you see, he tries to divert it as well here and says, when Harrison when confronted about the money, hesitated to tell them about his modus operandi. What Harrison was confronted about, if I'm following what Ovia Success is saying here, they are confronting him about the money, not about his modus operandi. But of course, talking about the money will reveal your modus operandi if your modus operandi, as you say, is the fact of the case. But again, as well, even the modus operandi is a little bit sketchy because 5.4 million is not 5 naira, it's not 5,000. But note as well here, Harrison begged that none of these should enter social media until after the man has been released. But shockingly, the family went on social media and the dragging started. They claimed that he was on the run and his car was seized by the police. You see, for Harrison to beg that this should not come on social media and still went behind as well to reply the social media outcry that he stole money in the way he did, that number one, he didn't steal any money, and number two, that he has technology. In fact, for this to even be an outcry on social media alone, and the kidnappers who are people on social media like you and I, knowing that Harrison is someone that is against them and someone that is catching them, and of course some of them have been neutralized already, it becomes problematic to start with. And when Harrison now talks about the technologies and all of that, that even compromised the whole case. In fact, Harrison doesn't even need to come and talk about his modus operandi again, because him being involved in the case to even start with, and these kidnappers of course would be on social media watching like you and I, they know that there's a problem somewhere. But you see, one thing that becomes quite interesting here is that if the story of Harrison is true about this 5.4 million, that it's not as if this money is missing anymore. The only thing is that this money not being part of the real money is the reason why someone is being held. God so bless the person has not been killed yet, because you know these people now, they can just vex and pew. But we pray that should not be the case. You see, only the kidnappers can attest to the fact that 5.4 million of fake money was being put in the real money that they have. And that can only happen if the kidnappers themselves are caught. But do you think the kidnappers themselves will be caught with this whole situation going overboard on social media? Of course not. I'm just saying, maybe they might be caught someday. But only the kidnappers right now know the truth. If Harrison is a criminal as he's being called, or if what he was intending to do has materialized or is actually true, that they have fake 5-point-something million there that have trackers. And if Harrison took that money for his own personal use, knowing fully well that money will don't enter thief hand, now only thief go come talk, and that is only if they catch thief. But again, that would be very insensitive, because the idea, note, before they went to deliver the money, the idea was that pay 20 million, get 2 of them. Only the kidnappers themselves were suspicious that something is wrong here. And if the suspicion of Harrison's own team or those who spoke with him is true, that the person that came out to cry on social media has a back-end involvement, even though the woman they were begging that he should forgive, the younger brother should forgive or something. If he was involved in this particular inside job as is being suspected to be from Harrison's own team, because I have to speak for both sides, then it makes sense. It makes sense how he would know that the money is not complete so quick, because probably he would also know how the money was sent and why the money doesn't look like the way it was sent. Do you understand? And for him to give an outcry as well, not being suspected as being someone involved, if he's involved, knowing that there might have been some tracking going on with the money, if what Harrison is saying is true, put him at risk. Do you understand? And he wouldn't want the kidnappers to be caught if he knows who they are and what they are doing. And worse still, if the person that is in there knows that he has a hand or feels that he has a hand in that particular kidnapping, as if he has even seen his face or even heard a voice that is like him there. So on the part of the suspicion, allegedly from Harrison's camp, if he's being said to be involved, he will want to know why the money is shorting. And now the revelation of this whole strategy as well now puts them at flight risk. And only he himself would also know if what Harrison is saying is a lie, that there is no 5.4 million fake money on the inside. I don't know if you understand. But the thing is that if he confidently comes and say that there's no such fake money, then that means either he's an insider that knows what's up and knows that Harrison is lying to the teeth. And the only way Harrison can be vindicated on his own side of the story, as he's saying that this is his modus operandi, would be if the thieves themselves are caught and they also get to see the money and see that, oh, this is the fake money. But again, on the other side as well, if Harrison is making this particular confession that 5.4 million was mixed into the real money, then Harrison would have to prove to the police. Why is he still being held right now? He has to prove to the police of how he was able to get 5.4 million of fake money to mix with real money and how the tracking thing goes on. But again, as well here, revealing his modus operandi to the police and everything now just quashes and brings down his security initiatives and what he just registered some time ago to a standstill. Why? Because it's no longer serving his purpose. It's supposed to be a secret thing that he just comes in as well and then, helps. And Harrison's cover should never be blown, or Harrison's cover should never be opened. Not when someone is held in custody. It should be such that someone is being kidnapped, Harrison is being informed, or he gets himself involved, and the conversation about that only comes out later after the whole thing has been done, like Harrison has been doing before. So this particular one now has compromised the case while someone is being held, and his strategy and his modus operandi now being revealed, if that is a real modus operandi, now makes everything as well fertile. That's where it becomes quite interesting looking at this case. But are you thinking what I'm thinking, my dear friends?